You're welcome to People and Power. My name is Zahara Namuli. We are obviously getting used to the new normal. You have to actually see us with these masks on to protect ourselves and to protect the people we are actually talking to. It is People and Power. And our guest tonight is Proscovia Nabbanja. Does that name ring a bell? She can walk us through on who this personality is in today's episode of People and Power. You're welcome on NBS television.
Thank you so much, Zahara. I'm glad to be here.
Do you think several people have seen you with this mask on, or are they used to the other face of you without the mask?
I think people have to get used to all of us wearing the masks. And it's for good reason, because we need to protect ourselves. COVID-19 is real. We've seen the statistics. It's worrying that we are getting so many deaths globally. And it's only good that everyone protects themselves, protects their families, protects the people at work.
So who is Proscovia Nabbanja?
Proscovia Nabbanja is an oil and gas professional, but as well as, you know, a lady, like you've said, who's so passionate about the oil and gas industry. Comes from humble beginnings. I started my education from a small school in my hometown, Mugongo Primary School, and then I proceeded to Trinity College, Nabbingo, for 6 years, after which I joined Makerere University for Bachelor of Science in Chemistry, Geology and Physics, and after that I joined service in May 2000. And I also have a background in petroleum geosciences at master's level with the Imperial College of Science, Technology and Medicine. And having lived so much in the technical fields, I went ahead and challenged myself on the business side. And a couple of years ago, I also attained a Master of Business Administration from Imperial College Business School. And it's interesting that many people have asked, you know, how did you turn out to be a geologist? I never really set out from high school to become a geologist. You know, during my time when we joined university, it was, you know, you get your grades, you're given a particular course to take at university, and I was given Bachelor of Science, Chemistry, Geology and Physics. Now, of course, as a young person, your aspirations were different at that time. You wanted to become a doctor, you wanted to become an engineer, you wanted to become a pharmacist. Well, that didn't happen.
What did you want to become?
Personally, I thought I was going to be a doctor. That didn't happen. And I remember going back to my parents and saying, okay, if I'm given this course, and at that time, Bachelor of Science, Chemistry and Geology was considered a flat course. I had a conversation with them, but I think the conversation I had with my father changed quite a lot of my perception of what, you know, the course I was given would do in my future career. He told me one thing, that as long as you're the best at what you do, you will be sought for.
Sure.
And that really gave me a different perspective. So I settled in for geology, chemistry and physics. And we were very few in our class. I think we were about 19 or 20 students.
At Makerere?
At Makerere University, which is different from what we are seeing today, because today you're having classes in excess of 60 or even 100, because the industry has that demand and people are seeing the benefits of joining the industry. But back then, oil and gas was not known. And even then, when you took up the course, it wasn't directed towards oil. It was really geology in its entirety rather than focusing it on petroleum.
When you went in for the course, did you finally maybe see or read about what exactly you had landed yourself in, leaving behind the aspirations of being a doctor, now to pursuing quite a different career altogether, maybe something that was not even being talked about at school during that time?
Yeah, indeed, oil and gas wasn't talked about at school. You had to learn on the job when the time came to get to the job market. But I remember at that time, my father had a conversation with Honorable Gerard Sendaula back then. He was a Minister of Natural Resources, I think, and he gave us a perspective of the benefits of geology, because at that time minerals was the thing. There was also water drilling, so there were opportunities there. And indeed, when we went for internships, we ended up going into borehole drilling for water and also excursions to explore minerals rather than oil and gas. So the oil and gas industry hadn't resonated with me by the time I left university until there was an opening. We got this advertisement in the media. We applied for the role of geologist in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. We were so many who applied across the different years. And I'm lucky that I was chosen to join the Petroleum Exploration and Production Department. And that's when my career really started, learning on the job, understanding the industry, knowing how we are going to impact on the economy. And it's an exciting story when you get to know the life that I led during those times.
During the cadastral survey, what exactly were you doing?
In the cadastral survey, I was more of the person sitting on the computer and receiving data from the surveyors and putting it into the software platforms. We estimate the acreage of the different plots, and then that is subjected to valuation, which ultimately went to the chief government valuer for compensation purposes. That skill that I picked up from the cadastral survey team helped me a lot when I joined the Petroleum Exploration and Production Department, because I think 1 year down the road, or even less than that, I was put in charge of the cartography unit, which was also doing almost a similar job. You would go to the field, pick up the data, and then come back and produce maps out of the data. And geological mapping is not your traditional go to the field and meet the community and, you know, get back to your comfortable bed. Yeah. It meant going out in the jungle, under the scorching sun, interfacing with wildlife, sometimes rural communities that were already impacted by war. So it was quite a very risky area. But the beauty is whenever you got back to the camp, maybe on a campfire and sharing experiences and seeing the benefit of the work that you've done, it gave you that comfort and the push to go back the next day. But for a woman, it was always quite challenging, because imagine walking, you know, on a daily basis in the scorching sun, maybe on hard rock, maybe on different altitudes. I remember the first experience I had was me getting my rucksack with milk, with biscuits, with water, and then we go up to Panimur, if I remember, and it was a steep hill, and every time I went up the hill, I started losing breath, and I had this heavy load on my back, so I had to start picking out a bottle of water and throwing it downhill. You pick up biscuits, throw them downhill. And then there was this nice gentleman who I used to work with that kept following me and picking up whatever I was dropping.
Because you'd need them.
Absolutely. And then the rest of the team was so far away from me because they were already used to the environment. And when I reached the top, I was so exhausted, I didn't even have a bottle of water. And the support technician who was behind me came with all my stuff and said, here you go. So I had a water. So I respect him. Unfortunately, he passed away in line of duty. But you know, it was always good to have that support system.
Did you find yourself at one point running down, maybe being chased by an animal or something?
Oh, so many. We could write an entire book about that. But I can touch on a particular example where we were faced by elephants. We go out in the morning to do our survey work as usual, and then we find elephants on two opposite ridges. We pass between them. They were quite distant from one another, and then we go do our work, and you always had to trace back the journey that you used. I remember at that time there was no mobile telephones, it was walkie-talkies. You had to have connection to the car that dropped you maybe 6 kilometers away, and you have to find it using the GPS. So in the evening we are returning with my colleagues, and then we see elephants still on opposite ridges, and then we think that actually that's the way to get back to where we had started the journey from. And then as we walk through or in between these two ridges, then the elephants start closing in. So they formed an arch around us. And at the end where we're going is papyrus, and it's soft. And the moment you get in, you can hardly get out. I've never been so stuck in my life to such an extent that I felt I couldn't move. And they were closing in, but good enough we used to have the game rangers, and they would help us.
After spending nights in the jungle, getting the encounters with the various wild animals, Proscovia Nabbanja pulled through, and in the next few minutes we will be talking about where she has finally landed and what her future prospects are. It is People and Power.